Everyone, welcome to today's Polsky Center workshop. My name is Katie Spoden. Today's workshop is about branding for startups, and we are very lucky to have David Kelbaugh who is the founder of Tacklebox Brand Partners with us today. He has over 15 years of experience managing global advertising campaigns and brand strategies for companies like Marlboro, Allstate, Sprint, and BP. If you have questions for David while he's presenting, feel free to put those questions in the chat and David can answer those as he's going along. But we'll also have some time at the end for questions as well. So with that, David, I will hand it over to you.
Great, thank you, Katie, as always. Let me share my screen. Thanks, guys, for coming. There's a lot of you, which is excellent. I'll try to make this as interactive as possible, so please feel free to chat in some questions. I'll do the best that I can to answer them. But like Katie said, I'm really here to talk to you guys today about branding, specifically branding for startups, because branding a startup is a completely different thing than branding a company that's already famous like Nike or Heineken. So I'm going to talk about the differences that therein today. And I'm also going to share with you guys some examples of the process that we believe is most appropriate for branding of early stage companies. I think along the way, some of the things I say about branding might surprise you, which is good. I want you guys to learn as much as you can today and hopefully come to get an appreciation for how brands are built on a big scale, how brands are built on a small scale, and the benefits of building a brand, a solid, strong brand from the start. And so without further ado, I'll dive right into it. This presentation, I've affectionately called it "Your Logo's Great, but How's Your Brand?" And the reason that it gets that title is because a lot of times, if I were to ask you all what exactly is a brand, if I were to ask 98 of you what is a brand, I would probably get 98 different answers. But most of those answers would probably center around your logo, your company's name, your company's colors. And I want to say up front that your company's name, your company's logo, and your company's colors matter nowhere near as much as people think that they do. Okay, so in today's presentation, I'm going to potentially redefine what a brand is, give you some examples, and challenge you to think about your company in a new way, or at least to start to articulate it in a more inspired way. And I'm going to give you the keys to knowing how to do that. I'm going to try to train you guys on how to start thinking about your brand like a major Fortune 500 company does. Okay, so we're going to cover what exactly is a brand? Why is a brand important? What's the difference between a good brand and a bad brand? Some examples, small and large. And then we're going to follow it all up with how do I build a brand for my company? Just my intention is to give you guys the playbook on the suggestion on how to build a brand, but know that almost everything that we talk about today happen to be within Tacklebox's core capabilities, and we're very comfortable working with startup budgets. So I hope that you'll reach out to me in some capacity, even if it's just questions and answers. I do have a special offer at the end of the presentation, which we'll talk about. Katie did a great job introducing myself. I'd like to belabor that point just a little bit, just so you guys know and can contextualize where I've come from. So I spent about 20 years working at the largest advertising agencies in the world. If you're at all familiar with advertising agencies, you've probably heard of Leo Burnett, Ogilvy, DraftFCB. When I was at those agencies, I got to work on some pretty famous campaigns, not the least of which is the Marlboro Man, Allstate's Mayhem, and some BP work as well. Let me try to zoom this out. every time I try to do full screen, it just doesn't show up. So you'll have to bear with the fact that it's slightly zoomed in. I hope you guys can read it. Do know that we'll be able to, Katie will be sharing the presentation after this. But so just know that I worked at really big, I was responsible, my team and I were responsible for some developing and curating some very big brands. I've learned a lot. I look very fondly upon my experience at the big ad agencies, but about 8 years ago, I went off on my own to found Tacklebox Brand Partners. You know, the one thing, if you start to think about all of the thing that companies that have experienced mass market success, the one thing that they all have in common is that they've been able to achieve momentum. And we can measure momentum in a lot of different ways, but I challenge you to find one company that's experiencing huge success that doesn't have momentum on its side. And momentum is not an easy thing to earn. Momentum isn't given out. You really have to earn it. And you primarily earn it through the development of strategic, solid, beautiful branding that speaks emotionally to the audiences that matter the most. But you also earn momentum by complementing your branding with strong marketing, okay? So we like to think about momentum as being composed of 1 part branding and 1 part marketing. Tacklebox does provide both services, although the majority of what we're going to talk about today is branding. Tacklebox, we've been working, like I said, in Chicago for about 8 years now. We have some immense clients, not the least of which is Goose Island, Procter Gamble, the state of Illinois, but most of our portfolio of clients are much smaller companies, generally falling into the tech space, the B2B space, and the food and beverage space. We're also proud to be a mentor and an advisor to a bunch of very, very powerful and instrumental accelerators and incubators around Chicago. Of course, plug Polsky Center, my favorite. Don't repeat that. No, it is my favorite. Don't repeat that. We're also mentors to Northwestern Garage, 1871, M Hub, and more. So that's a little background on Tacklebox, a little bit of background on me. My passion in life is to help early stage companies find the momentum that they deserve. And a key component to that is getting the brand right. We at Tacklebox believe that when you get the brand right, the rest comes easy. And I can explain that over the course of this presentation. I want to give you guys a short little history lesson. As someone that's been studying marketing like obsessively since the age of 15, about 40 years ago, the world of marketing was relatively simple. The goal of every chief marketing officer, the goal of every marketing department was to make sales. And based on the way that consumers shopped, based on the way that people seeked out new products, the marketing mix was relatively simple. You would take out advertisements on the Sunday edition of the newspaper, give people 3 or 4 good reasons to buy your product, and on Monday morning, people would come to the grocery store and they would buy your product. That's the way consumers shopped. That's where they looked for information. And so that's the way marketing got done. Complement newspaper advertising with some salesmen, and you've got the recipe for success. Things are far more complicated now. But I will say there was a major revolution about 20 years ago. 20 years ago, it came to somebody's attention that the majority of their sales were coming, you've sometimes heard this referred to as the 80-20 rule, right? Oh my goodness, 80% of my revenue is coming from 20% of my customers. This was an epiphany that kind of rocked the marketing world, if you will. At that point in time, businesses were spending so much time trying to acquire new customers that they weren't paying a good deal of attention to their current customers, right? So somebody said, maybe we should stop paying so much attention to non-customers and start taking better care of our current customers. This is when we were introduced to things like cross-selling and upselling and customer relationship management, right? This is when new tools and programs and software were created to take better care of current customers. This is also, by the way, at about the same time Salesforce as a company was founded, and has of course ridden this wave to huge success. I think we're in the middle of yet another revolution where it's still about making sales and it's still about making repeat sales, but maybe more than that. Today's marketers are challenged with transforming customers into advocates. Just getting customers and repeat customers are not enough. We need to do everything in our power to allow our customers to advocate for us through social media. If we can get customers who love our product, love our brand so much that they're willing to tell their friends and family through social media, you will get the momentum that you need to succeed in the modern workplace, in the modern marketplace, right? So we want to get new customers, take care of existing customers, but more importantly, transform customers into advocates. Here's the rub. No matter how great your product or service is, consumers are less, this has been proven, consumers are less likely to advocate for you unless you have a strong brand in addition to a strong product, right? I've seen, between you and me, I've seen way too many exceptional businesses, exceptional products fail because their brand didn't do the product justice. I've also seen some companies fail because their brand was much better than their product. The companies that experience mass market success are the companies whose exceptional product is being told in an equally exceptional way through the brand. That's why building a brand is more important than ever. Unfortunately, it's not as easy as people think that it is. In fact, it benefits all of us in this room, or in these rooms, since we're virtual, to start building our brand much like we would build our product or service, okay? So in my humble opinion, there is way too much time and effort being given on perfecting the product and way too little time and effort given to perfecting the brand. Here's the way most companies do business, okay? There's a circle here, and around this circle are all of the business decisions that that company is going to have to make. Thousands of them a week, probably, right? And it's very difficult. This is what separates the superior managers and management team from the inferior, is that they don't put a ton of thought into these decisions. What most companies do is they take the easy way, way out. And as they start to think about their company culture, their offices, their employees, their website, their brand, their social media, their advertising, is they tend to take a very product-centric approach to making these business decisions. And at the end of the day, what that results in is an exceptional product, bar none. It also results in a very strong product-centric culture, a bunch of product specialists, and the website essentially ends up looking and acting like a promotional brochure. So the days of thinking that your brand is nothing but a manifestation of your product benefits and your workforce is nothing but a bunch of product junkies, those days have come and gone. And it's the inspired brands that are challenging the way that they think about things and are putting a new model in place. And it's brave and it's different and it's more difficult. But what they're doing is they're swapping their product and their brand. They're putting their brand at the center of all of their business decisions. And so a byproduct of that is that they now have a brand-centric business from start to finish, including the employees, right? In fact, some of the most inspired companies in the world, I'm looking squarely at Nike, I'm looking squarely at Apple, is they let the power of their brand dictate the products that they sell. Most companies, it's quite the opposite. For most companies, they take a product and they build a brand to support it. What I'm suggesting is that the most forward-thinking companies take a brand and they build products to support it. So they invert it. But I'll tell you, even though it's slightly scary and still pretty philosophical at the moment, if we start to put your brand at the center of all of your business decisions, your company, including its marketing, is put on its head and completely transformed to be extremely inspired, okay? I'm gonna quickly go through this. Having built or helped build world-class brands for nearly 2 decades, I can tell you that there is a process to building a brand. And the first phase we call discovery. This is, you first need to come to the realization that we're not building the brand for you. We're not building the brand for the founders. We're building the brand to attract the customers that will benefit the company the most, right? So if at all you're tempted to create a brand that you like, try to fight that urge, because your central goal for building a brand is to attract your customers. And the way that you do that is to build a brand that has them in mind, not you in mind, okay? That's relatively basic stuff. But what might be new to some of you is phase 2, which is the introduction of this notion of brand concepts, okay? You guys all are developing a product or service, and you're comfortable asking people, customers, potential customers, for feedback on that product or service. What I'm suggesting is you should be doing the same thing for your brand. And so the way that we do that is that we create these things called brand concepts. I will absolutely show you examples of brand concepts and try to give you everything that you can to make them on your own. Brand concepts allow you to get feedback, not just on the product or service, but feedback on your brand, okay? Once then you get feedback on the brand concepts, you can then choose one of the brand concepts that you've gotten feedback on and let that inform, let that be the blueprint for your brand moving forward. You've got peace of mind now because your brand concepts, you know that you have done some testing and validation among your customers. You can rest assured that the colors, the words, the pictures, the tagline, the logo, all of those things are going to connect with your target audience. And it's very important to get their feedback. Brand concepts allow you to do that, okay? One of the benefits, I'm going to introduce you guys to one of the benefits of brand concepts as we define it, is that you can, believe it or not, you can connect with multiple disparate marketing segments, okay? But once you finalize the brand concept, that's when you start to think about marketing execution. So after you've finalized a brand concept, you should turn your sights to creating something of substance, leveraging what you've learned in the brand concepts. And that could be a brand manifesto or a website. Because the reason I say start with a manifesto or a website is because those are very big bags of your branded materials, and you can always pluck from it for social media or for press releases or for content. Okay, so understand the audience, test brand concepts, start building. That's a general philosophy. Only after you've built your brand and you have it to a place where you're happy with it, should you start to think about marketing execution or activation, okay? I want you guys, too many companies are confusing product benefits and their brand as one thing. They're in fact different. Depending on what category you're in, what industry, and depending on if you're B2B or B2C, you should view your brand and your product as completely separate things, okay? For the purposes of today's presentation, I'd like to challenge you guys to think about your product and your brand as things that are not very related, okay? Think about your product as nothing more than how your company makes its money, okay? Your product is nothing more than how your company makes its money. Think about your brand as how your company is to be remembered, okay? That's really what branding is to get your company to be remembered in the right way by the right people. Your brand and your product are separate things. Run the risk of being noticed, okay? You guys are going to find that whatever product or service you're bringing to market, whether it has patents under it or not, you're going to find that you have competitors. There are a lot of competitors, regardless of the industry that you're in. And so we always challenge our clients to do something different. Run the risk of being noticed. The first ad agency I ever worked at, their tagline was run the risk of being noticed. And I like it because two things. One, it says be noticed. In other words, be different. Do something different that all of your competitors aren't. The second thing is they've put the word run the risk there because it is scary to not be like your competitor, right? The easiest thing to do would be just to study your competitors and rip off what they're doing. That will give you some degree of peace of mind, but chances are you're probably not the first to market. And when you're going to get press coverage, when you're trying to reach out to influencers and bloggers and similar, you're going to need, in order to break through, you're going to need to be different. Okay, so I'm suggesting that you should be bold. And if your brand is not making you a little bit nervous, then it's probably not an effective brand. Be remembered by something greater than the product that you sell. Okay, the easy thing to do is if you're selling a glass, call it a coffee mug, to put a picture of your coffee mug on your website, have some call outs explaining why your coffee mug is better than everybody else's. That is probably the easiest way to go about marketing your product or service. It also happens to be the least inspired way. It's not going to inspire anybody. Nobody ever retweets or likes a post of yours because you've thoughtfully designed the handle so that your fingers don't get trapped on the coffee cup. It's a very long shot that someone will care as much about your product, your service design, as you do. So the goal as marketers is to be remembered by something greater than the product that you sell. Let's try to attach our brand to something that people already care about rather than trying to get people to care about the product that we're selling. I'm throwing a lot at you here, guys. I know. It all comes to reality with some examples in a little bit. I said this before, people will never care about your product as much as you care about your product. The truth of the matter is, as early stage founders, we spend the first couple years of our lives perfecting our product. And I believe that something happens in your brain where you become predisposed to articulate nothing more than the product benefits. At the end of the day, you lose track of the fact that consumers are very busy and maybe aren't as interested in the design of a coffee cup as you think that they are. That's a cruel, cruel reality. At the end of the day, people never care about your product as much as you do. And that's where the brand comes in to do some heavy lifting, okay? This is a wonderful video. It's starting to feel a little bit old, but if you haven't seen this video called Start With Why, go ahead and Google it. Not now, later. I would say skip the book, watch the video. I think it's 13 minutes. This is a pretty inspired, I guess you could call him philosopher, modern day philosopher. I actually listened to one of his podcasts this morning. He does a great job explaining the difference between great brands and bad brands, great leadership and bad leadership. And I think the quote that he says that sticks out the most is he says, the goal is not to do business with people who want what you have. The goal is to do business with people who believe what you believe, okay? What he's suggesting here is that if you start to put a core belief at the center of all of your branding, that you will attract people who believe what you believe. And when you attract customers that believe what you believe, thank you, Katie, they will pay a premium for your service. They will forgive you when you mess up. And more importantly, they will be way more likely to advocate for you and your company through social media and referrals. So he's really was one of the first to introduce this notion of belief-based branding, okay? And I'm gonna dive into that a little bit. I'm gonna dive into that a little bit by talking to you about brand concepts, okay? Brand concepts, I want each and every one of you to start thinking about your company in a new way. I want you to start to reframe your company, okay? The way you articulate it, I want you to find a way to speak about your company in an inspired way. And we think that using this brand concept is going to do that for you, okay? So rather than talking about what your company is and what it does, I want you to start thinking about what is it that your company believes to be true that is so core to its belief that it is unchangeable. In other words, what is the belief that your company believes is so true that it led to the founding of your organization? Okay. So that's what we call the belief. And I want you guys to start putting your beliefs at top of all that you do. Underneath the belief, by the way, I wanted to say this formula for a brand concept that I'm exposing you to, the big ad agencies have spent a whole lot of money to figure this out, to the tune of millions of dollars, okay? And what this formula does is this is a formula that allows you to take someone from unaware of your organization to likely to buy from your organization in the shortest amount of time possible. What I'm suggesting is 90% of everything that you'll ever have to say in the course of marketing your product or service is on this brand concept. Many, many, many things that you are tempted to say on your website are unnecessary. So let's boil it down to a brand concept. Hello, my name is Tacklebox, and we believe that blank. Then consumers are going to need to know not only what do you believe, but why do you exist? What is your company's mission statement? The reason that we don't call it mission statement is because mission statement, when we phrase it that way, it tends to come across as a little bit boring. There's no fire in it. So we call your company's why, we call it your exist statement. The next thing that we want to infuse in your brand concept is called the reasons to believe. Why should I believe in you? I've never heard of your company. Are you new around here? Your single biggest obstacle that stands between you and success is credibility. You need to be prepared to provide objections to those credibility concerns that people say. Investors are going to have them. Consumers are going to have them. You know, it's very, very reminiscent of that expression, nobody got fired for hiring IBM, okay? The scary thing is very few of you in this room are IBM. And so what you need to do is build a list or almost like an arsenal of objection refutations here, reasons to believe. Why should I believe in your company? There's a company right down the road that I've heard of that my friends like. I'm not sure I'm ready to take a chance on you. That is our single biggest obstacle as early stage companies. Of course, next, you're going to need a logo. Don't worry about your logo, okay? Not nearly as important as people say that it is. I believe that you're far, it's probably not. Anyway, there's places to spend your time and effort other than building a crazy, great, cool logo, okay? In the grand scheme of things, the content around your logo matters much more than the logo itself. By the way, same thing with your name, the name of your company. What I do want you guys to spend an inordinate amount of time on is think about what are the 4 or 5 words that descriptively explain what it is that your company does. Okay? If you're a shoe company, put the words "a shoe company" underneath your logo. Unfortunately, a lot of people are misusing this territory here underneath their logo. As early stage companies, you should not be viewing this real estate here as a tagline, okay? You need to explain very functionally what it is that your company sells, okay? So all of this, when wrapped up and designed, is what we refer to as a brand concept, okay? Brand concept, it's not really an advertisement. It's not really a website. It is what it is. It's a brand concept. It is a way for you to put potential ways for your company to be remembered on paper so that you can get reactions from people who matter the most to the success of your business. Think of it like stimulus materials, okay? This is the equivalent of showing the blueprint or the rendering of your house to your friends and family before you build it, okay? If it helps for you guys to think about it like an advertisement, feel free. But the truth of the matter is, it's not. It's really a blueprint for your brand strategy. Hope that makes sense. I see a question here. There's a lot of overlap, though. What you'll see is that while this brand concept in and of itself is not a piece of communication, a lot of the contents from it will be used in your communications moving forward. So this is not quite a website design, although a lot of the website design and writing will take assets from this brand concept, okay? Here are some examples. I know, thank you guys for bearing through or fighting through all that philosophy. I guarantee you, we've got now some real world examples to share with you guys. I'm going to share with you a couple examples that you've heard of. I'm going to share with you a couple examples of companies that you haven't heard of. So here we go. Nike, I like to use Nike because Nike is a company that's gotten its brand right from day one, okay? And I like to share it because everybody knows what Nike is. So this is not unfamiliar territory here. Nike decided once upon a time that they wanted to be more than just a shoe company, okay? So this was a purposeful, strategic decision that was made by Nike's executives to be remembered by something greater than the products that they sell. Yeah, we make tennis shoes, but we need to be something bigger than that. And there's all kinds of benefits to being bigger than the product that you sell, okay? So Nike's brand concept, I'd imagine, I wasn't there, but if they were to have developed a brand concept, it probably would have sounded something like this. Hi, you don't know us, but we are Nike, and we believe there's an athlete in all of us. We exist to help you find your greatness. I know you've never heard of us because we're new around here, but you should believe in us because we have excellent designers, access to incredible materials, and our items have been tested extensively at the professional level. Right? So that could be one of Nike's brand concepts. Is it perfect? I don't know. But the truth of the matter is we're moving from an uninspired company to an inspired company just by A, thinking and articulating the company in this manner, and then B, getting feedback from people who matter the most. What happens then is you throw a picture behind it, and now what you have is one of 3 brand concepts that can be shown to potential customers, right? So Nike gets peace of mind. First of all, they're talking about their company in a totally different way. They're talking about their company in a way that sounds nothing like Reebok. They're able to get feedback from their customers on the look of this, the sound of it, and with that comes peace of mind. I think we all need a little more peace of mind when it comes to developing a brand that's not necessarily designed to be attractive for us. Keep in mind, we're not building brands for ourselves, we're building brands for our customers. So this is one of 3 brand concepts that follow that brand concept formula that I told you is so valuable and so important. It allows Nike to test and get feedback. Nike decides, of the 3 brand concepts that we got feedback on, this is the one that wins. And now Nike can start to transform itself to an inspired company that leads with its brand, not with its product. So what Nike has done is they've identified a brand concept that inspires the entire organization, culture, offices, who you hire, your website, your products, your social media. Now all of a sudden, Nike is a company that people want to be a part of. The awesome thing about developing a great, solid, inspired, high-level brand strategy is that it leads to tremendous communication, world-class communication. With a brand strategy like we believe there's an athlete in all of us, it doesn't require a rocket scientist or a creative genius to create amazing communications. Okay, so I'll say this. I believe that the reason Nike has such amazing advertisements is because they have such an incredible brand strategy. The other thing, and maybe even the biggest benefit of starting to think about your company in this form, in this way, is that Nike has, whether intentionally or otherwise, they've positioned themselves as an infinitely scalable company, right? If Nike decides, you know what, I'm looking at the sales of our shoes and our shoes are not selling that well, Nike is able to pivot and create other products. Remember a while ago, I said the most inspired companies in the world let their brand lead their product and not the other way around. Nike can do this. Nike is allowed to sell golf clubs and skateboards and bathing suits and workout attire and basketballs and uniforms. Did I say surfboards? See, Nike is now entitled to do all of those things because those things are an expression of their brand belief. And Nike has left Reebok alone, sitting in the corner, trying to make a better tennis shoe. I don't think any of us would ever buy a surfboard or a skateboard from Reebok. Why would we buy a skateboard or a surfboard from a shoe company? Okay. So now you're starting to see, and think about this from the context of investors, right? Investors, how does this business idea scale? Well, because we've built a solid brand strategy, we're able to sell almost any product that we want. This is because we've chosen to be a brand-centric business, this is one of the most scalable businesses that you'll meet this year. And we believe that because ... Right? I also, let me say this about Nike, I sort of fear for Gatorade the day that Nike decides to launch a sports drink. I wouldn't want to be the Gatorade's chief marketing officer the day that Nike decides to market a sports drink. And Nike can market a sports drink because Nike's core mission now is bringing out the athlete in all of us. It's not making great shoes, right? This is why a while ago I said to you it was important to think about your brand and your product as separate things. They are separate things. Your brand is how you're going to be remembered. Your product is how you make your money. Nike's being remembered by its brand strategy, and it's making its money by selling things. That's the way it is, okay? So why does Nike win? Nike's got momentum. It's indisputable. the reason that they have momentum is because they chose to be something more than a shoe company. They have loyal customers, vocal customers. They're not forgotten, right? They have higher mind share. We all talk about market share, but maybe we don't talk about mind share enough. They're infinitely more scalable than just a shoe company. That's what I talked about earlier, surfboards, skateboards, and maybe most importantly, please don't underestimate this, is they're more likely to attract investors and attention from the media, from the press, okay? Here's another example. I'm sure you guys have heard of Shinola. By the way, I said that names don't matter and logos don't matter. I think Shinola agrees with me. The name Shinola doesn't particularly have any meaning other than it's got some kind of heritage that I don't think many of us can articulate. And they clearly haven't spent a lot of time thinking about their logo. I'll assume that's because they've been using that time, money, and energy and effort to work on their brand, because we see signs of the fact that Shinola knows what they're doing from a brand perspective. Here's why I say that. This was a Facebook ad that came across one of my team members' Facebook feed, maybe like a year or two ago. I don't know when it was exactly, but check out what's going on here. You start to think about the brand concept that we talked about and Facebook communications as a microcosm for brand concepts. So logo, right? Logo, name. And then they're using this space that's generally reserved for a product benefit. Try the best watch in the world. They've used it to start their headline with, "We believe." So we are Shinola. This is our logo. We believe a proper timepiece should do one thing well, and that's keep time. Introducing the run well. It's just smart enough. So basically Shinola is saying, look, this is what we believe. If you don't believe it, stop reading. I don't want to waste your time. You don't want to waste our time. If you don't believe what we believe, if you don't believe that timepieces and watches should be simple, easy to use, and basic, but well constructed, then we're not the watch company for you. If you want, think what they're inferring here. If you want a watch that tells you your altitude, tells you your heartbeat, tells you how your oxygen levels in your bloodstream, like these are not the kind of things that Shinola watch customers look for. So Shinola is not being afraid to say what they believe, right? This is reinforcement that the most inspired companies in the world put a belief at the center of what they do, not a product benefit. Now, you'll notice in Facebook that you've got some pretty substantial white space down here. So what they've done is Shinola probably went to a creative agency, not unlike Tacklebox, and they said, look, now that we've set our brand strategy and anchored it to a belief, we want to create something creative here that reinforces what we believe, right? So then you see this. This is literally in the Facebook ad. And it is absolutely a dig at the iWatch, and it's a dig at Garmin. But Shinola understands what most marketers don't, is that they're not trying to sell to everyone here. They identified who their target audience is, and they're not willing to lose customers. They are willing to lose customers. They're not trying to sell this watch to everyone, right? So this is a creative, dare I say, witty and funny execution that ties into what their core foundational belief is. All right, so this is a nice microcosm of solid belief-based marketing at its finest. Very clever headline here. A watch so smart that it can tell you the time just by looking at it. A great looking watch with average intelligence, right? The suggestion there is that this is not a smartwatch. This is not a smartphone. This is not a smartwatch, but it's just smart enough. Brilliant marketing, in my opinion. This is a Chicago company. And basically, Gennaro is a lifestyle brand that finds its inspiration from the edge of urban living and the energy of the beach environments like Rio. And Gennaro, again, if they were like every other company, they could have just told the world what they sell, given people 2 or 3 good reasons to buy it, and then cross their fingers and hope that people show up, right? That's not the way business gets done. That's not the way marketing gets done anymore. That's the way it used to get done 40 years ago. So what we need is Gennaro needs to make its money through the sale of its products being to-go bowls, office spaces, fashion. This is very much a lifestyle brand that just happens to sell, food, office space, clothing, and more. So we roughly blocked out a couple brand concepts for Gennaro. The first brand concept that we did for them was based on the insight that Gennaro is the lifestyle brand that's committed to helping you live life with energy, no regrets, and youthful exuberance, right? So that was kind of the insight that drove the strategy. We found a brand opportunity in the sense that Gennaro should be the brand that provides the things that make life better every day. Life is far better when Gennaro's on your side, right? So we decided to test several different brand concepts. All of them were different in words, different in design, and they were intended to be rough, right? So that's the other thing about these brand concepts, is that they do need to be different, but none of them need to be perfect, okay? This is like, I see somebody in the chat box makes mention of a minimum viable product, right? The whole reason that you create a minimum viable product is so that you can get feedback without investing a boatload in it. So brand concepts don't have to be perfect, but what they do need to be is different. So one of the brand concepts that we've created for Gennaro is, we believe health and happiness makes it all possible. So without health, without happiness, life kind of sucks. That's what we're inferring. So Gennaro is the lifestyle brand that exists to bring you the best of life your way every day. Oh, you're asking me to buy food from you. I've never heard of you. Why should I believe in you? Well, I'm glad you asked, because all of our food items are remarkably fresh, local, tasty, they're healthy, they fuel your day. We're all about inspiring places and spaces. We're all about a world that's lush with vibrant faces, plants, artwork, apparel, and we're driven by an inspired founder that helps us all find the best in life every single day, right? So you're asking, imagine putting this in front of 10 people who you believe align with your target audience. You can get feedback from them on the words, the pictures, the colors, the logo, and all of that gives you the peace of mind that when you go to market, you're not screwing up your brand, okay? Building a brand, a courageous brand, doesn't have to be risky. And that's why brand concepts are so valuable. There's a couple different ways to test brand concepts. You can do it through a focus group, right? Well, maybe not anymore. Can't be in person. But you can do an online focus group, get some potential customers together on a Zoom call, show them all 3 of the brand concepts that you've designed, get their feedback, ask what they think about the words, what they think about the pictures. You'll get feedback that way. It doesn't need to be a huge sample size, you know? Our perspective on research is some degree of research is better than none at all, okay? So you'll be able to get feedback like, I don't like the color, this is too young for me, this is not appropriate, I live in Illinois, this feels like Miami. So that's the type of feedback that helps you create a bulletproof brand. You can do a few other mock-ups too, right? Just to share with people to get so that they give you feedback. Again, I'm not necessarily in love with anything you're seeing here, but maybe it's possible that I'm not the target audience, right? And so sophisticated marketers understand that branding is really something that you need consumer input on, and it doesn't need to be terribly expensive, by the way. So once a brand concept is chosen, that's when you start to pick out, develop a playbook, an operational playbook, so that you can maintain and execute your brand consistently across all platforms, including social media, website, press kit, press releases, clothes, right? You can even start to dabble into personal branding to support your company's brand, right? And it may seem a little contrived to you guys, but this is the way the big agencies are building brands. This is the way the big beloved brands, this is exactly how they go about doing it. It's very calculated, very calculated. And so the end result is that they're minimizing or mitigating the risk associated with launching their brand, you know? Look, I think it's kind of easy to talk about Nike, and it's kind of easy to talk about Gennaro because those are both B2C brands, right? B2C brands have more liberty to kind of be whatever they want. But the truth of the matter is a lot of the people that are on this call today are probably in the B2B space or probably in the tech space, okay? So I don't want to ignore examples like that. So this is like a highly technical client of Tacklebox. This is a consulting company. So a service-based technical consulting company that specializes in healthcare, specifically healthcare support services. So these, if you walk into a hospital, there's the profit centers, right? That's like the doctors and the nurses and all that stuff. But then there are a lot of like not core competencies of the hospital, right? Like linens. There's sort of necessary from an operational perspective. Like the linens on all the beds need to be cleaned. The scrubs on the nurses need to be cleaned, right? On the doctors too. There's the cafeteria that needs to be run, the valet. All of those little ancillary services are commonly referred to as support services. And when mismanaged, those can cost hospitals a lot of money. So Kesco is a consulting company that helps healthcare organizations find and manage their operational vendors, right? Like the linens, the cafeteria more profitably, efficiently, and with better outcomes. So if Kesco had chosen to be just like every other support services consulting company, their website would have been blue and green and white, and they would have said, we are a support services consulting company that helps healthcare organizations optimize, increase customer satisfaction, and improve operational efficiency. Boring, right? Boring, uninspired, not differentiated. So we ended up testing a bunch of different concepts for them, and ultimately, the differentiator that resonated the most was Kesco's people-centric approach to all that it does, right? So this is let's call it a abbreviated version of the brand concept that tested most favorably for them. We believe people matter. We exist to be the highly specialized boutique consulting firm that focuses on healthcare support services. Kesco Group LLC, right? So they're leading with a belief. They're basically saying, if you don't believe us in the things that we believe in, we're not interested in having you as a customer. This is why we exist. You'll notice not a lot of time at all was spent perfecting the logo, because logos don't matter. Partners in support services accurately describes the products and services that they provide, okay? So that was the brand concept that tested most favorably. At that point, you can go ahead and begin to use that brand concept as the blueprint for all of the things that you're going to need to do your job well, including business cards, tear sheets or one-page overviews, pitch decks, stationery. Did I mention that? Of course, website, social media, all of that kind of stuff comes out a lot easier and with more peace of mind because you tested and validated your brand concepts among the target audience. Another example, sure, it's Procter & Gamble, but it's also a startup, right? So I'll tell you, these guys have been a very good client of ours for years. And they don't have as much budget as you might think that they do, given the fact that they're supported by Procter & Gamble. But a couple years ago, Tide, the detergent, was looking for ways to extend its brand. And one of the ways that they thought they could do it was to create a laundry delivery service, okay? So basically, Tide Spin will come pick up your clothes, take it to a cleaner's, have it cleaned, washed, folded, and dropped off and brought back to your house in 2 days or less, okay? So we did thorough qualitative research, quantitative research, competitive analysis. I think we developed like maybe 5 or 6 brand concepts for Tide, for Procter & Gamble. They ended up picking this one. This is the one, I shouldn't say they picked it, right? This is the one that tested the best in research. We are Tide Spin, and we believe we could all use a little more time. So that's the belief statement. The belief statement makes no mention of what they do for a living, right? Trying to be remembered by something greater than the product that they sell, trying to get remembered by a belief. Right underneath that, why does Tide Spin exist? Tide Spin exists to lighten your load by doing your laundry and dry cleaning for you with just a few clicks of the app, ... So now we've got peace of mind, right? Visually, this connected with the audience. From a copy perspective, this connected with the audience. And then we can start to build out all of the assets that are needed to do our job as marketers, okay? So in this case, it was a press kit in order to get attention from the media, postcards, folders, sales folder, direct mail pieces. All of these direct mail pieces came so much easier and are coming across so much in a more inspired way because Tide was thoughtful about its brand concept. And Tide doesn't have to worry about if it's doing the right thing. As long as they're creating communications that align with the brand concept, then everything's fine. This is a billboard that ran all over the L stations in Chicago that we created and produced for them. Same thing here. Maybe looks familiar to some of you. This is a print ad that ran to introduce Tide Spin into the marketplace. These are banner ads that ran on, what's it called? iHeartRadio website, right? So creating things like this are a lot easier. They save you time, they save you money once you have a solid brand concept. I'll give you guys one more example. This is a really awesome restaurant in the merchandise mart, like very high end, high potency, high performance food at a high price tag, by the way. But we really wanted to come to understand who is the target audience for this store and what do they believe, what type of visuals connect with them, what type of copy connects with them, and how can they differentiate themselves from the thousands of other juice bars around Chicago. So we developed, again, several brand concepts. This is the one that tested the best. Okay. The exist statement and the reasons to believe aren't on this particular example. But the important thing is that they're anchoring themselves to a belief statement. We are high vibe, and we believe in food that fuels greatness, elevated sustenance. You'll notice a very distinctive graphic design treatment that was given to it. And that was purposeful because we wanted to give people a lot of things to react to in the focus groups. High vibe customers tend to have a little more edge. And so we thought that this picture was reflective of that. Our hypothesis was that this electric color that we interjected into the design would be a hit. And then we had a little bit of fun. We created, they had the opportunity to put posters around the merchandise mart. So one of the posters that we created was food for people who know better. They serve bulletproof coffee there. So we thought that piece of communication in tone, in attitude, and in copy was very supportive of what we learned in the testing from the brand concept. This one here, like a great big slap across the face of mediocre meals everywhere. Again, I think good copywriting. Prescription strength foods and fuels now available over the counter, right? So this is like suggesting that some of these products have medicinal like qualities. Our menu, 30% juices and tonics, 70% superfoods, 100% unfair competitive advantage, right? So this is powerful, I think, emotional marketing. It's combining the product benefits with the emotion and the edge that tested so favorably. When you realize every meal is the most important meal of the day, high vibe is where you want to go for that. Here's just an anthemic poster. I think that says a lot without saying a lot, right? We serve all types of customers, especially the mavericks, renegades, dissenters, game changers, and other kinds of highly regarded overachievers. So it's kind of badass, right? In my opinion. Is it the brand that I would necessarily choose? Not sure. But again, we need to separate our opinions from those of our target audiences. Change your job title from dreamer to doer. High vibe. So now we'll start to wrap up, and I think we'll probably have some time for questions. But, there's 4 phases to it. Let me, the first is really come to understand your target audience. By the way, if you're looking for investors, investors love to see diligence and research on your target audience. It can be done effectively and affordably. Get to know your audience. Who are the people that matter the most to the success of your business? Once you have their opinions summarized, you take those opinions, those insights, and let those leverage the creation of brand concepts. Do some degree, again, some degree of research is better than none at all. Some degree of research to test and validate your brand concepts. The brand concepts, just in and of creating them in and of themselves, elevate the way you talk about your company. But then to test them and get feedback on them is extremely valuable, because it gives you that peace of mind that you need, right? Start to think about, if you got the brand concept wrong and the brand concept's sole purpose was to inform all of the pieces of communication that you're going to create for the next 10 years, that's a propagation of incorrect brand mistakes that is very it's very expensive to fix. So create the brand concepts, get the feedback, modify the concepts based on feedback, then start to build out the marketing that you need, right? I would suggest that you start with a website or a press kit, because those are pretty monumental constructions that then you can just leverage and pluck from in order to create the other things that you need to market your product. Once the brand is fully built, consistent, and anchored to your brand concept, that's when you start to think about marketing activation. You really don't want to start thinking about marketing and public relations and influencer and all that stuff until you've built the brand. Your brand and your product are separate things, right? Keep in mind, your product is nothing more than how your company makes its money. Your brand is how you're remembered. They are two distinct art forms. Run the risk of being noticed. Be remembered by something greater than the product that you sell. People will never care about your product as much as you care about your product, right? So product benefits are not the end all be all. And finally, the goal is not to do business with people who want what you have. The goal is to do business with people who believe what you believe, right? Nike knew it. Shinola knows it. And now you guys know it. And also, we bravely had this sentence when we founded the company about 8 years ago. And I think we're believing that more and more it's true. If you embrace branding the way that we've talked about it today, if you lead with a belief instead of a benefit, and if you embrace and roll out your brand in the proper way, the rest really does start to come easy. Everything from hiring people to scaling to gaining attention from the press, getting investors. It has the power to transform your business for good. So I'll take a look at the chat box here. Because I think you guys are awesome and I love the Polsky Center. My email address is here. And the first 10 folks that email me, I'll give you a 30-minute branding consultation for free. I got to limit it to 10 or so, just because I get a lot of requests. But let me answer any questions that you guys have, potentially wrap up a little bit early.
This is so great, David. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. And I don't know about anybody else, but I definitely want a high vibe juice right now, especially on a cold day like today. David, there's a particular question I'd want to start off with that I think you could provide some good insight on from Diane. In the discovery phase, in the quest to understand what drew your clients to your company's brand, what are some key questions that you like to ask?
Yeah, so this is difficult for some, because for a lot of you, maybe you don't have customers yet, right? And then for those of you that do have customers, it's much easier to get a hold of people, right? So for those of you that have customers, I think a really nice question, ironically, that informs marketing more than branding is, how did you find out about us? Okay. word of mouth? I mean, you've seen that question before. Generally speaking, you should ask them about their now this is assuming they've tried your product. Ask them, what was it that attracted? What was it about your product that attracted them in the first place? What was it that surprised them in a good way? What was it that surprised them in a bad way? And how likely are you to recommend this product to other people? Okay, so those are very product related questions. Generally speaking, if you already have customers, that is the perfect time to expose your brand concepts to those customers. If you expose brand concepts to those customers, your line of questioning is going to be a little less product centric and a little more brand centric. In other words, hey, so-and-so, thank you for buying our coffee cup. We are thinking about reintroducing it into the marketplace in one of 3 different ways. We call these brand concepts. If it's helpful for you to think about them as advertisements, that's fine. And then you share what you show them, the 3 brand concepts. You ask them which was their favorite. What was it that they liked about it? What was it that they didn't like about it? And then you should try to focus their questions on feedback on the words of the brand concept, and then also feedback of the design of the brand concept. Now, for those of you that don't already have customers, there are ways to get feedback from the people that you believe are in line with your customers, and that can be done more affordably than ever. If you have questions about that, that's the type of research that you probably want to outsource, and frankly, Tacklebox does all day long, right? So there's generally like 3 challenges. The first is, who is my audience? That can be pricey, and that's not something that we do. But once you figure out who you think your target audience is, getting opinions from them is relatively inexpensive. And then figuring out what people think about the brand concept. That's kind of the third type of market research that can be done. Long answer to a short question, but it's a good question. Thank you.
And it was a good answer, David. So
thank you.
I appreciate you being so thorough.
You say that to all the boys, don't you?
We do have a couple more minutes for a few more questions, so feel free to keep putting those in the chat. There is a question related to paid ads. This sounds like great stuff to try out in an organic way, but what's your take on paid ads and how they can help us to build a brand?
Here's the thing about that. We've seen this happen before. We'll develop brands for clients, and then they'll put those into A/B testing on Facebook. That is not the best way to test the brand strategy, frankly. It's difficult to explain, but when you put a piece of communication into Facebook or social media and do an A/B test, you're essentially getting feedback to the headline and the picture, not the emotion and the core insight that drives the brand strategy, okay? So it's very common when budget allows it. Oftentimes we'll get feedback on the brand concept, and then we'll just happen to throw those brand concepts into A/B testing. And a lot of times what we hear in the focus groups or in the online research is very different than what the results on Facebook might indicate, okay? So again, just to summarize, we don't think A/B testing is a good way to test a brand strategy or a brand concept. It is a good way to test an advertising concept. And we can talk more about that. It's a little murky, but we can talk more about that if anybody would like to. Just shoot me an email.
Great. And I think kind of related to what we were just discussing, target audience is a really broad subject. Where do you say we start looking when you're trying to determine who your target audience might be?
Yeah, I think we all have assumptions, right? Whenever we build a product or service, we have a visualization of who we think we are going to be targeting, and chances are your intuition is correct, okay? However, I do think you can spend some time covertly exploring Reddit, explore Reddit, explore Quora, and interact, right? You're bound to find a group on one of those two websites that's somewhat related to what it is that you're selling. Get in there, ask some questions. You can even get into the skateboard room or the healthcare consulting room and ask people questions. That will be, I think, a very cursory and inexpensive way to validate your suspicions. Beyond that, of course, there's market research methodology, but we're a very cost-sensitive agency here at Tacklebox. We charge us the least amount that we possibly can. So if there's ever a way to validate hypotheses without spending money, we're all for it.
There is a question from Ned in the chat about social enterprises, or just maybe nonprofits in general. How would they have a different approach versus B2B or B2C businesses in terms of building a brand?
I think this kind of thinking that we shared today benefits a nonprofit maybe more than it does a B2C company or a B2B company, because let's face it, at the end of the day, 95% of B2B companies and B2C companies have a business objective of making money. That's not always the case with a nonprofit, right? Nonprofits are generally driven by something more than economics. And when that happens, they're probably socially driven. And when they're socially driven, it's very easy to extract a belief and an exist statement for a company that exists for reasons other than making money. So I would say everything that we talked about today, by a factor of 2, is relevant for nonprofits and socially oriented organizations. Lawrence had a question. If someone truly has a blue ocean service or product that is hard to compare to in the marketplace, what's the strategy? I think the process is really the same, Lawrence. You know, I'd be interested to hear what product or service that you have, but to get more specific on it. But I've yet to find, we've never had a client come to us where they don't benefit from the creation of brand concepts. I will say this. If your goal as a business is to be the least expensive player in your category, a brand is far less necessary if you just want to be the cheap service provider. And there's no shame in doing that. There's no shame in doing that. In fact, a lot of businesses have made very good success of themselves by just being the cheapest, right? Walmart. The problem with being the cheapest in the marketplace is sometimes you're not, and then you get egg on your face. But then more importantly, you'll never get the margin that you need in order to become a truly successful business, right? I think Walmart was doing just fine until Target decided to come along. People are willing to pay a premium to go to Target. And so Target's investment in the brand has paid off for itself big time. You know, companies that participate as the low cost provider, it's often referred to as a race to the bottom. And I don't disagree. I think if anything, you want to enter the marketplace with a premium price. And because once you lead with a low price, you can never raise it successfully, you know? So my recommendation to all of you would be invest in a brand so that you can charge a premium. You always want to start charging a premium. That doesn't mean be the most expensive in the market, but it means charge a premium.
David, I have one final question for you. It looks like, oh wait, no, one just popped up in the chat. What do you suggest if a company has a brand with multiple sub-brands in it? That's actually kind of related to what I was going to ask, because I like to watch Shark Tank a lot. And a lot of Kevin O'Leary's comments is, this isn't a company yet, it's just a product. So how do you balance the need to create multiple products, potentially multiple sub-brands within a brand without, you know, overextending yourself? So Rujani, I'm kind of combining your and mine questions there, but David, I'm curious to what your thoughts are.
I think hopefully your products and services are related, so related enough that they could tuck underneath one central belief, right? Think about Tacklebox. We could easily be a branding firm and a marketing firm separately. But what happened is we found that underneath our belief, the company with the most momentum wins. That belief supported could be our products could support that belief, right? So potentially and hopefully all of the sub brands, as you say it, can ladder up to support one central belief. I would say this: if your sub brands don't ladder up to the same belief, then they should be separate brands. They don't have to be one brand, right? Nike was able to do it because all of their products, which we can think of as sub-brands, all supported this belief in enabling humans to do amazing things. So don't feel like you have to support. All of your brands have to sit under one master brand. But I believe that it's better if they do. It's certainly less expensive to build one brand than it is to build multiple.
You got a smiley face from Rujani in the chat there.
Rujani, thank you.
I think that's our final time for questions. David, thank you so much for sharing your time and your expertise with us. You're getting lots of thank yous in the chat. Thanks to you all for participating and asking great questions. We will be back with another workshop this Thursday about selling, digital selling. So I can send a link for that in the thank you email after this session. But with that, hope everyone is enjoying the rest of their day. And thank you, David. Anything you want to leave the people with before we sign off?
Don't forget to take me up on that 30-minute branding consultation, guys. I appreciate all the feedback. And again, my life's goal is to help people fulfill their dreams by building businesses they love. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, David. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
Bye-bye.